Hello, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the U.S. may soon be giving Israel the biggest aid package in history. The Arab League tries to thwart Israel's bid for the United Nations, and senior Facebook officials are in Israel to fight online incitement. I'm Natasha Kirchak here with the latest news in Israel. Well, after months of wrangling over the details, it appears that the next American military aid package to Israel is finally about to be signed. That's according to U.S. Ambassador to Israel Dan Shapiro in what were the first public comments made about the deal in quite some time. Right after he attended the memorial ceremony in Israel marking 15 years since 9/11, Shapiro addressed a counterterrorism conference outside of Tel Aviv. He told those gathered that the military memorandum of understanding will soon be in place, and that it will be the biggest aid package the U.S. has ever given to any other country in history. The current MOU between the two allies needs to be renewed before 2018 and will cover the following decade. Jerusalem has reportedly asked Washington to raise the annual $3 billion it's been receiving each year by $700 million. It's also believed to have requested that the document include an addendum on missile defense spending, which could raise a total of more than $4 billion. V-22 Osprey aircraft apparently capable of reaching Iran are also thought to be on the Israeli wish list. The deal isn't just a one-way street, though, because Washington wants to see more of the money actually spent on American-made products. Besides that, missile defense technologies Israel develops with the American funds will then be used for the protection of American troops and other defense personnel. Overall, the deal reflects the depth of the long-standing alliance between the U.S. and Israel, which has always served as America's strongest and most trustworthy regional partner. As Israeli and Palestinian leaders bicker over whether or not to hold peace talks in Moscow this month, the international community is growing increasingly concerned over Israel's continued expansion of Jewish communities in the West Bank. Yet Israel claims that Jews have lived in the area for thousands of years and that building in the West Bank is not an obstacle to peace. Today, around 1,000 Jewish people live among the 230,000 Palestinians in Hebron, a West Bank city that's known as a frequent flashpoint of violence. The Israeli government spends millions each year to protect Jewish settlers in the West Bank with Israeli troops, and now it looks like Israel has just approved a few hundred more new housing units in the region.
I think it's a wonderful thing. It's incredible. The Jewish presence in Hebron is something we've been waiting for, and it's something that's been developing for ages, and it should be obviously very, very much encouraged. It's a wonderful blessing for us, for Israel, for the whole world.
An Israeli Civil Administration Planning Committee recently approved the construction of a nursing home in Elkanah, 30 houses in Beit Aryeh, and 20 homes in Givat Ze'ev, all settlements near Hebron. The construction will mark the first round of Jewish expansion in Hebron in more than a decade. While many Jews from the area are celebrating the expansion, lots of local Palestinians feel that the move is an attack on their home.
احنا كسكان حاسين انه في هناك هجمه شرسه على المنطقه هاي، وخصوصا منطقه شارع شهداء وتل الميدة. الاحتلال بحاول جاهد بتهويد المنطقه وباخلاء سكانها بشتى الوسائل.
Yet the 570,000 Jewish people living in the West Bank claim that it's their home too, and that both Israelis and Palestinians should be able to occupy the land side by side in a peaceful manner.
This is our country. This is where we born, and we should develop this land and not leave this land. This is my little daughter, and I hope that she and all my kids will live here in happy, in peace.
The international community has long condemned Israel for expanding Jewish settlements in the West Bank, saying doing so undermines any chance for peace. Israel has continued to reject such accusations, claiming that history proves a Jewish presence in Judea and Samaria for generations. The Palestinians have called for Israel to cease building in the West Bank as a precondition to peace negotiations, but Israel has refused to engage in talks until all preconditions are dropped. Even though it seems like Israel has been improving relations with many of its neighbors in the Middle East, the Arab League is making it clear that there's no way it will stand for the Jewish state becoming a member of the United Nations Security Council anytime soon. The 22-member Arab group has already declared opposition, even though Israel can't even declare candidacy for the UNSC until October of next year. And the rotating seat in question isn't until the session between 2019 and 2020. Immediately after the Arab foreign ministers' latest meeting in Cairo, the League's Secretary General told a news conference that no efforts to thwart Israel's bid will be spared.
أن إسرائيل تسعى للحصول على عضوية مجلس الأمن في انتخابات تعقد على مستوى الجمعية العامة في شهر أكتوبر 2018 لعضوية لإسرائيل إذا نجحت، وسوف نسعى لإفشالها لعامي 19 و20. ففي اتفاق على مقاومة هذا، وفي اتفاق على مساعدة الفلسطينيين على التصدي لهذا، وأن الدول العربية تقوم بجهد قوي مستخدمة كل الأدوات المتاحة لإفشال هذا المطلب الإسرائيلي.
Ahmed Abul-Gate of Egypt made reference to the origin of the effort against Israel by saying there's a consensus agreement to use all available tools in helping the Palestinians fight the Israeli demand. While Israel has occasionally held posts such as the vice presidency of the General Assembly, the Jewish state has never been a member of the Security Council. The Security Council is the most powerful and prestigious body at the United Nations and has the authority to not only impose sanctions, but to even authorize the use of military force when enforcing its decisions. Candidates are proposed by the full Assembly's 5 regional groups, and a 2/3 majority vote of the UN's 193 member states is required to win a seat at the table. Lately, there have been a series of political crises brought on by Israel's ultra-Orthodox parties, and ILTV's Steve Leibowitz sat down with political expert Mitchell Barak to find out why.
Last Shabbat, there was work that was done in Tel Aviv on the light rail, causing all sorts of political noise, ramifications. Is this possibly the beginning of a major coalition crisis?
No, I think what we see with the Shabbat work being done is a lot of posturing and a lot of standing up for principles and rights and so forth. We have these problems and debates all the time. The religious parties step in. They don't want to be necessarily a part of the desecration of Shabbat and working on Shabbat, but they very well know that that's how you have to get things done sometimes. That's the safest way to do it, and there may be ways to do it. You'll remember a number of years ago, I believe it was Netanyahu's first term, the turbine that was moved from the port to Haifa to wherever it was going, and it almost brought down the government. And in the end, the turbine moved on Shabbat. They found a way to do it. They found a way to use other people, because you can't close down the country and close down the highways and the railroads because you have to do work. And it's sometimes the safest way to do it. It's a lot of political posturing.
Now, Minister Katz, some would say, is among the most effective ministers. He's been a very good transport minister, gets things accomplished. He also is not known for wanting to offend religious sensitivities. So what led to this?
I think it was, as you said, it's an efficiency issue. This is the best way to construct. He's responsible. He's taken a lot of responsibility on his shoulders, Minister Katz, as transportation minister. He's building railways and bridges and tunnels and a light rail and all sorts of things that require a lot of complex logistics and a lot of complex work. And you have to find the best way to do that. And sometimes the best way to do that is to actually do the work and do it on schedule. I mean, you know, if the sites would shut down for Shabbat, it might take another 4 years to do, or 5 years to do. That's not what the people want, and there are ways to do it. The country in general doesn't shut down. The airport doesn't shut down on Shabbat. So they've found ways to do it and to work out compromises and so forth. And Minister Katz is an effective minister who sees himself as an heir of Prime Minister Netanyahu. He's someone that could replace Netanyahu. He's someone that has experience in the cabinet, has experience actually doing things. He's very popular within the Likud. I think he went head-to-head with the Prime Minister last week and was taught a lesson that you don't go head-to-head with the Prime Minister in the Central Committee, but he certainly has a lot to offer.
There's been an old debate about Shabbat relating to public transportation, because A lot of people who are not well off, don't have cars, have no way to get around on Shabbat, on Saturday, which is their only day off. Is this a very big issue as far as you're concerned among the voting public?
Well, it is a big issue because there are people that want to keep the sanctity and the feel of Shabbat, and there are people that feel that they're trapped inside their homes, that there's no entertainment. But just where this interview is taking place in Jerusalem, Jerusalem has changed over the past years dramatically to the benefit of those that don't keep Shabbat. We have a movie theater that just opened just a few kilometers away from here, the Yes Planet, which is running movies and entertainment and concerts on Friday night and on Shabbat. And 10 years ago, that wouldn't have even been heard of. No one could have even imagined that that would open and that would happen. You have the First Station, which is totally open on Shabbat. So there is a lot more things happening, a lot more activities and ways to do it. The problem is still going to be, how do you get there? For people that have cars, it's great. For people that don't, there's no real public transportation. Some of them have been taking the Arab bus lines in the city. Jerusalem is a city that has Egged bus for Jews and Arabs, and an Arab bus line that serves some of the Israeli Arabs, or to take taxi cabs, which is not the best thing to provide the citizens. It depends on the city. Some cities have public transportation, most don't. It's a status quo issue.
But how big an issue is it for voters? The majority of the people in this country are secular people. One would assume that that majority would prefer to have some, at least basic, public transportation to get them to places like the beach. And yet we see that the ultra-Orthodox are managing to prevent that from ever happening.
Right. Well, if a lot of those secular people didn't have cars, then it would be a real issue. But most of them do have cars thanks to leasing companies, thanks to their places of work which are providing cars, and thanks to their personal finances and the bank loans that they have to pay for the cars. So people can get where they want to go for the most part. It affects a small percentage of society, but an important percentage of society. But it's not the issue that's going to stop it. I think even for the secular residents, it's more important that there are places open and there is what to do. The question of how to get there is a secondary issue, but important. But most of the people are finding ways to get there. Even if you look at Jerusalem's First Station or Yes Planet, people are finding ways to get there. It would be better if there was public transportation, but it also might not be cost effective to run any kind of public transportation, even a private public transportation, because not enough people would want to use that transportation. Either they have it or they're not going to leave their houses on Shabbat.
Rachel Barak, thanks very much for being with us at ILTV.
Thank you.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is sending his best wishes to the Muslim and Druze citizens of Israel for the Eid al-Adha festival, which began last night. Yet, despite his kind words towards the Muslim community on behalf of the Jewish state, the Palestinian president is accusing Israel of committing ethnic cleansing, an accusation that sounds strange given the fact that the Muslim population in Israel has increased about tenfold since it became an official state in 1948. Abbas is lashing back at Netanyahu and his government coalition after the Israeli Prime Minister released a video in which he accused a Palestinian Authority of advocating for the ethnic cleansing of Jews from the region. The Palestinian president says that Netanyahu has gotten it wrong and that Israel is guilty of the allegations it's making towards the Palestinians by refusing to pursue peace. Yet over 20% of Israel is made up of Arab citizens, most of which practice Islam. In fact, there are 10 times as many Muslims in Israel today compared to when the Jewish state was established in 1948, and the population is continuing to grow at an unprecedented rate. And that's not all. 17 members of the Israeli parliament are Arab citizens today, and even one of Israel's Supreme Court judges is a Palestinian Arab. Although Arab citizens in Israel enjoy full civil liberty and political freedom in the Jewish state, the Palestinian Authority is still calling on the international community to take action over Israel's continued expansion of Jewish settlements in the West Bank. The Palestinian president is claiming that by doing so, Israel is attempting to cleanse the area of its Arab population. The Israeli Prime Minister has not yet responded to the allegations, but is instead sending his wishes to Israel's Muslim community for the festival of the sacrifice Eid al-Adha. The Israeli leader claims the festival praises the same values that the Jewish religion celebrates, and is another example of one of the many things that should unite Jews and Muslims in the Holy Land. Eid al-Adha commemorates the willingness of the patriarch Abraham to sacrifice his son, and God's ultimate decision to intervene and stop the slaughter. The Muslim holiday will continue for the next 4 days, and the Israeli Defense Ministry has announced that it will be permitting 100,000 West Bank Palestinians to visit family in Israel throughout that time. Chemical pesticides have long been condemned for the harm they cause to our environment, and now one Israeli company has dedicated itself to tackling the issue. The Stockton Group has developed its very own line of biopesticides to ensure a greener, cleaner, and healthier agricultural industry. Joining us today in the studio is a company CEO, Guy Elitzur, to tell us all about it. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
So to begin, what are biopesticides? What is the difference, between what exists today?
So we all know what is pesticides, right? And pesticides based on chemicals. So what Stockton has been doing the last more than a decade is developing pesticides based on biological sources. So we're focusing on plant extract, which means we're going into the plant with different tools, and we extract the molecules in order to defend the plants, and we create out of that pesticides product. And we integrate it into the spraying programs on a global level.
Interesting. Okay, so there are a lot of companies right now, from what I understand, that are developing biopesticides.
Correct.
What's special about your company's biopesticides?
So that's a good question. Most of the company on the global level are focusing on microbial source, meaning viruses, bacteria. What Stockton has been doing the last decade is developing and commercialization biopesticides based on plant extract. Again, within the plant, there are hundreds or thousands of molecules designed to protect the plant. So we are going into the plant basically with genomic tools, and we extract specific molecules, and we create out of them pesticides to protect different crops and different diseases.
So in a sense, it's natural, this pesticide that you're using on the plant.
Completely natural.
Right, so it's something
biological.
that the plant would create for itself, but just multiplied by a million, essentially.
Exactly. So it natural was designed in order to protect the plant. What we're doing is we're taking that naturally designed in a very sophisticated way and create out of that pesticides to protect other plants.
Interesting. Now, where is this product being used around the world? I understand that you're working in some very interesting countries, not just here in Israel.
Right. So we're operating more than 30 countries globally. We're operating in the biggest agriculture market like the US, Brazil, Mexico, and we're integrated our product more and more into conventional spraying program, meaning to the crops that are raised and grown in order to feed the mouth of the population globally. And we are gradually replacing pesticides chemical and reducing chemical loads within the lands and within the spraying program.
What is the impact, that chemical pesticides right now have on the environment?
So it goes all the way from spraying chemical over the land and the fact there is a load of chemicals in the land. It goes to the farmers that are spraying and affected by the chemicals. And of course it reaches to any of us that are eating crops that were sprayed by chemical, and there is a certain level of residue that left over the crops that are not healthy, are very toxic. And by bringing more biological product into this system, we're going to create a healthy world for the entire ecosystem and the stakeholders that dealing with the agriculture arena.
Right, because what I understand is when you're spraying massive fields with chemical pesticides, it's not only landing on the plants themselves, it's landing on the general terrain, which can be obviously very bad for
Most
the
of
earth.
it are land on the land, right?
Right, the majority of it.
Right.
So, and you said that you guys are focusing on specific crops that I guess are more consumed in maybe developing countries.
We're focusing more, I would say the following. We're focusing on fruit and vegetable because there is a higher sensitivity to the food that we are directly eating or consumed, right? And we are focusing more on countries that are either first world country or are exported to first world. So we are working in the US, Canada, and Mexico, which is a big tomato export to the US, and Chile, grapes for Europe and for US as well. That's, I would say, the main or the natural place that we're focusing right now.
But I can imagine you guys can grow from here and then start focusing on places where they really need to, you know, enhance their agricultural industry, and they can do so in a more natural way, correct?
Right. So that's the following steps.
Right.
Absolutely.
The future.
So the future, exactly. So let me just give you an example, maybe to illustrate the vision that we see. In Mexico, we are working with a leader of this industry, and we are basically replacing between 25 to 35% of the chemical that were sprayed before with biological. So just imagine yourself that we're able in the next 5-10 years to replace third of the chemical that are sprayed in different crops with biological. That will become a fantastic world, much healthier, from the farmers all the way to every one of us that eating fruit and vegetables.
I can only imagine. Now, how did you guys come up with the idea to create the product that you've created?
I think this was envisioned by one very special person by the name of Peter Tirosh, which is the founder of Stockton. Peter was dealing with farmers for many, many years, and basically understood their needs and their difficulties and challenges, and envisioned the future of the agriculture and the future needs, where you see the land that become more and more urban and less agriculture. You see the needs of a higher level of population wants to eat better food, and that need to be mitigated by technology and by a biological solution, and that's what Peter started more than a decade ago. And I think it was a great visionary man to see the future.
Absolutely. I mean, well, the hope here is that it improves the earth, right? And we're
Right.
able to eat healthier products. Now, I understand that you guys are also working in aquaculture, which is basically agriculture in the ocean.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so aquaculture has, we're dealing with shrimps, fishes, all kind of seafood, and basically there are the same diseases or same pests like viruses and bacteria over there. And it made a lot of sense to us to navigate part of our resources on plant extract to the needs and the difficulties in aquaculture. And we have succeeded to identify the same problems that we can solve with the same, I would say, know-how and knowledge that we accumulated with biological. And for that as well, we're eating fish. It will be, I would say, much easier, much healthier to eat fish when there is no residue issue on the fish, less chemical pesticides are used over there. So that's another activity that we do in the last couple of years.
Wow, it sounds amazing what you guys have created here.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming in, and I'm excited to see what the future of the agriculture industry is with the product that you guys have created.
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
If you spend much time on the internet, you know it doesn't take long to come across content that you find offensive and sometimes even dangerous. The Israeli government has long been accusing Facebook of failing to do enough to stop terrorists on their platform. And now a group of senior Facebook officials are in Israel to see how Israeli officials believe Facebook can stop terrorists from inciting violence online. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced a visit by the Facebook delegation during his weekly cabinet meeting. He welcomed efforts by the social media giant to help battle online incitement, he says is used by terrorists to incite murder and hurt humanity.
המטרה כאן היא לשפר את שיתוף הפעולה נגד ההסתה לטרור ולרצח ברשת החברתית. האינטרנט הביא הרבה ברכה לאנושות, אבל מקופלת בו גם לצערנו כללה, כי גורמי הטרור וההסתה משתמשים באינטרנט כדי לפגוע באנושות. אנחנו נחושים להיאבק בתופעות אלה, ועל כן אני מברך על שיתוף הפעולה, או לפחות הרצון לשיתוף הפעולה, שמגלה חברת פייסבוק, ואנחנו מקווים שהדבר הזה יניב תוצאות טובות יותר.
The delegation is being led by Facebook's Vice President of Global Public Policy, Joel Kaplan, and Monica Bickert, who heads Product Policy and Counterterrorism. They'll hold talks with Israeli government representatives, who dispute the company's commitment to battling online abuse through its set of community guidelines. Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan openly accused Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg of having some of the blood of Hallel Yafa Ariel on his hands, the 14-year-old girl that was stabbed to death in her bed by a Palestinian terrorist. The Israeli teenager's murderer publicly posted several messages about his desire to die for the Palestinian cause in the months before he stabbed her to death in her bed as she slept. Erdogan also insists that Facebook hinders Israeli police efforts to catch terrorists. He's now actually working with Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked to draft a law authorizing court injunctions to remove offensive content from social media. Shaked has previously gone on the record stating that both Facebook and Google should be held accountable for criminal activity taking place on their websites. The Facebook team has so far declined to specifically comment on their visit to Israel. And now for our Hebrew word of the day. All we really need is love, but a little candy now and then doesn't hurt, so today's word is sukaria, which means candy in Hebrew. They say the only thing better than a friend is a friend with a sukaria. Now, for those of you that have a sweet tooth, Israel is the place to be. From marshmallow cream-topped cookies called krembo to chocolate-covered cornflakes dubbed click, there are enough sukariot or candies in Israel to make you drool. In fact, Israelis love candy so much that they even call their loved one sukaria. So don't worry if you overhear your Israeli aunt calling you sukaria. She's not trying to eat you, she just thinks you're as sweet as candy. So keep calm and eat a sukaria. Life is sweet. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tuesday is expected to be partly cloudy with a high of 86 degrees. The clouds should stay out through Wednesday and the temperature will drop down slightly to 85. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.77 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to check out our next update at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and see you tonight.